Hello everyone, Zane here and welcome to another Final Fantasy XIV video. Today I wanted to go over the Phantom jobs and give them my personal ranking of each one. So I'm giving a personal rank and a practical use rank. So the first thing we'll be doing is the Knight. So the buffs unfortunately overwrite what they originally did, so I can't really give you an idea what they are alone. But at level 1 we get Phantom Guard. At rank 4 we get the buff that makes it 90% damage reduction, which is great if you're doing gold farming with your group of 8 people. Prey only is good if you use it next to a Knowledge Stone, which gives you a 10% damage reduction, but also gives you a heal over time of a 5,000 cure potency for 30 seconds. Occult Heal unfortunately has limitations because if you're not a caster or healer with the Lucid Dreaming, you will not be able to use this more than twice because it has a 5,000 cure MP cost with a 30,000 cure potency. Pledge is great because it's basically hollow ground at 120 seconds, but it will not stop you from dying to enrage type attacks like in Fork Tower, but it is great to keep yourself alive if you do not have your invulns during mass pulling with your gold farming. And then of course the traits increase the Prey and Phantom Guard. So with practicality, I would definitely give it a B, but for my personal, I would give it an F. I don't really care for it. Next is Phantom Monk. So we have Phantom Kick, leap towards your enemy. Make sure you don't do it too close to a wall because you might end up killing yourself in a critical engagement. It has a potency of 100 and does a straight line AoE to all your enemies. Potency scales with item level. Grants a stack of Phantom Kick, which lasts 40 seconds, and you can have a maximum of 3. Level 4 and 6 increase the damage increase to 9%. Next is Occult Counter. I think physical attacks only count for this. Does 150 potency to all enemies in a cone before you. Scales with item level. Can only be executed after parrying an attack. This is where counter stance comes into play. Gives you a 100% chance of parrying at 60 seconds. It gives you Fleet of Foot, which is basically a peloton next to a Knowledge Stone. And then the Occult Chakra, which is great for casters because it gives you a 70% increase or recovery to HP and MP at 30% or lower, which is damn good. So let's do a demonstration. So Phantom Kick. Counter stance, which kind of already did. And then you go ahead and do your damage. Once Phantom Kick is back up after 30 seconds, use it again to keep your buff going. So basically Monk works great with casters. Even Warrior because they get extra damage through inner release. So basically the buffs with your crit and direct hit guaranteed, Warrior can definitely benefit from Phantom Monk. So Monk, as a personal ranking, definitely an S for me. As for a practical, I'd definitely give it an A. Next is Phantom Thief. So the first thing is Occult Sprint. You get the zoomies for about 10 seconds. Simple as that. Steal. Also Mug for ninjas also works the same way. Increases the additional items being dropped by target if steal is dealt before or as the finishing blow. Basically it gives you more gold pieces upon killing the open world mobs. Nothing more, nothing less. Vigilance. Gives you increased critical hit rate by 60% when used outside of battle for 20 seconds. So basically you can't use it inside. Only good for single pulls if you're doing solo stuff. Great for samurais who need this buff to do extra damage on the Madari and Ogenamakiri attacks. Trap Detection basically is your perception from Boja, reveals secret passages and of course traps inside of the Fork Tower, which is also going to be used in the northern section in the next couple of patches. Pilfer, basically your feint. Physical damage is reduced by 10% for 60 seconds. And at level 6, you get the trait Lockpicker. Open locked doors in the dungeons. Simple as that. Alright, so let's use these in battle here. So we got Vigilance. Got your Pilfer weapon, and then of course your Steal. So I'm auto-critting with this, so technically the Vigilance doesn't really do much. So when you kill the enemy, they should drop the normal red gold pieces, but it also tells you stole 3 more. So I ended up getting 6. So there's trap detection, and then of course, like I said, sprint gives you the zoomies, and there you go. So Thief, for practical use, it's pretty much an F tier outside of the Occult Crescent or Fork Tower, but it's probably an S tier inside, and it's basically mandatory. As for my personal opinion, I honestly would give it a C. If it was better, as for its steel, I probably would give it more like an A or an S, but because it just does gold pieces, and gold pieces has very little use, it's basically going to be a C tier for me for personal. Next is Phantom Samurai. So your first attack is going to be a stun for 6 seconds, and it has a recast time based off your skill speed. Next is going to be your impervious to damage for 1 physical attack for 4 seconds, so basically it's a watered down hollowed ground. Whoopee. Next is going to be your insta-kill attack, which has a 10% chance of doing that, and a 500 potency to all enemies in a cone before you. The buff at level 5 increases to 500 and 10%. And level 4 is going to be your Spirit Change attack. You must use an Occult Coffer to deliver a guaranteed strike with 1500 potency, scales with your arm level. So that is going to be these coffers here. You must either pay 10,000 gil or 40 silver pieces. Okay, so let's go ahead and do our imperv. So there goes that. We did not auto kill, which is fine, and then we got the Spirit Change, which does 479k, but also can go up to 500,000. So it's like almost an insta kill in itself if it's low enough. And of course, you got your stun. So I'm just going to go ahead and kill this, and then it will give you my ranking. Now for my ranking. As personal use, I would definitely give it an S tier because the fact that you can one-shot it, just like Phantom Firebird has a 10% chance instead of 5. And of course you get your Spirit Change where you can do massive damage. And also you got that stun, so personal, it's going to be an S. As for practical use, probably going to be like around a C/B because if you're going to be going to the Fork Tower, you're most likely going to have to use something more useful than Samurai, so that's why I give it a C/B. Next, we got my favorite, Phantom Berserker. Unfortunately, it has 3 different things. 1 Rage, 2 Deadly Blow, and 3 Pent-Up Rage for the buff. Now, Rage allows you to basically do auto attacks for a lot of damage, but you lose control of your body. So you only can do auto attacks for at least 10 seconds. When you have the buff at level 3, you get Pent-Up Rage. Any damage you take during Rage will increase the Deadly Blow potency. So, Deadly Blow delivers an attack with a potency of 200. It's a weapon skill, so it works off your skill speed. Potency scales with arm level. Potency increases up to 250 as your HP decreases. Increases potency up to 2000 based on the amount of damage taken while under the effect of Pent-Up Rage. And this one is going to like 12,000 experience just to get it to the highest rank. So Rage. So I'm doing like 50 to 40,000 points of damage. Rage is up. Deadly Blow. 141,000 points of damage. That's of course with the gear that I'm currently wearing. I think they say that Gunbreaker, if you use Super Bolide while Rage is up, or Pent-Up Rage is up, you most likely can do massive amounts of damage more with that up. So as a personal ranking, definitely an S because it's my favorite job. But for practical use, it's an F because the fact that you lose control of yourself during Rage, and unfortunately you are not able to dodge or basically survive any other attacks if you take too much. So unfortunately it's going to get an F tier for practicality, unless you use your invuln during it. Next is Phantom Ranger. Ranger unlocks by doing the Chocobo critical engagement, and Berserker is Roll the Berserker. Okay, so the first thing you get is a crit direct hit buff that's going to last you 30 seconds. The level 3 and 5 increase it to 50% and 30% respectively. This is great for samurais that work off of these buffs to make their damage from Madari and Nagakiri that much stronger, so it's definitely useful for them. Level 2 you get your dash, which is a 15 yalm gap closer, or if you want to extend the gap, and it has a recast time of 10 seconds. Falcon is going to do a stun in the designated area, triggers traps in the fork tower only, and has a 10 potency to all enemies, but it does scale with on level. And at level 6 you get a unicorn that gives you a barrier that it can absorb 40,000 damage for 30 seconds, and it has 120 recast time. So honestly, I would say this is an F tier for practicality because of the long cooldowns, but as for personal use for samurais, it's definitely, I'll give it an A tier. So I'll do the unicorn now. Use the eye. This is going to definitely make critting a lot easier for warriors. As you can see, the barrier is still holding. I'll eat the damage. Still does 0, and it's still, well, actually it just fell off. So anyway, yeah, the barrier is pretty good. Definitely can help you survive some mechanics in the fork tower with everybody else. And of course, here's your gap closer, and the falcon does that. So yeah, this one I probably definitely would be the lowest of the low for phantom jobs. Next, Phantom Time Mage. So you have Occult Sloga, which does a 80% slow on your enemies for 30 seconds. Occult Comet, which has a 60-second recast time with an 8-second cast time. Deals unexpected damage with a potency of 500 to the target and everyone nearby it. You can move, unlike the PvP Comet. Mage Masher, aka Addle, reduces magical attack power by 10% for 60 seconds. The spell takes away a beneficial effect from an enemy. The Berserker is the perfect enemy to take off his rage buff for that. And then you got Occult Quick. Reduces weapon cast time and recast time, spell cast time and recast time auto attack delay of self or a target party member by 10%, and reduces cast times for spells by 10 seconds, aka Automatic Comet. And that is 120 recast time. Greatly increases movement speed for 10 seconds. So basically it's like a Occult Sprint. Okay, so let's go ahead and do these on this enemy here. So slow. Mage Masher, Occult Quick, and then Quick Cast the Comet. And you get the zoomies again for 10 seconds. Alright, so for my personal opinion, I would definitely give it a B. It's not too good, but it's not great. You know, it's not bad. So I definitely would give it B tier for personal, but for practicality, it's going to be determined by what you're doing, so I'm going to give it a B. Alright, the spell can definitely help a lot when it comes to enemies that do have damage buffs. So that is going to be my ranking for Time Mage. Next is Chemist, and I'm probably going to get lynched for this, but Chemist has two abilities, Potion and Ether. They both work off the Occult Potion to give you full HP or MP. And they both have the same recast time based off your skill speed and or spell speed if you're using a caster. Level 3, you get an instant raise with a 5-second recast time, but works off your skill and spell speed. So basically, this is perfect for those who are trying to get the raise achievement, and also in the Occult Crescent Fork Tower. Number 4, the Occult Elixir, which basically gives you both HP and MP recovery, and this sucker costs 300,000 gil just to get it. So, absolutely useless because you can just stock up on both the Occult Potions and then flip-flop between Potion and Ether if you need it. It's not worth getting the Elixir for 300k. So, for a practical use, if it wasn't for the raise, F tier. With the raise, it's S tier. My personal opinion, F tier plus. I cannot stand freaking Chemist. Outside of the raise, it is ultimately the dumbest thing they did, and they could have made it so much better. Next is Geomancer. Oh, by the way, the elixir works for everybody in your party, not just yourself. But you might as well just play hero at that point. So Geomancer has a Battle Bell. Grants Battle Bell to target or self. Grants a stack of Battle's Clangor upon taking damage up to a maximum of 8 stacks, and it lasts for 60 seconds. Increases damage dealt by 5% for 30 seconds. That's with the Battle Bell buff. I think it's 3% without it. At level 2, you get Weather. So based off the weather conditions, you have different effects. Sunbath effect restores HP, or basically fair, clear weather. Cloudy Caress, Cloudy Weather, increases healing potency by 30%. Blessed Rain Effect, when it rains, gives you a magicated barrier, but nullifies damage. Then you have Misty Mirage Effect, increases evasion by 40%. Hasty Mirage Effect increases movement speed by 20%. And Ethereal Gain Effect increases damage dealt by 10%. So you have different weather conditions that like cause illusion. Like basically they will like spawn certain enemies like mimics and the echoes that like little gesture looking dudes. So I think those are what those effects are. Level 3, you get Ringing Respite. Grants Ringing Respite to self or target player. Heals self or target player when damage is taken. Cure potency of 3000 for 60 seconds. That's a recast time of 30 seconds, so it's an ability. This one's a spell, and this is an ability as well. At level 4, you get Suspend. Basically makes you float. It works best on the stone guy critical engagements, and I think in the Occult Crescent Fork Tower as well. And Battle Bell increases the Battle Bell effect to 5% and 3000 for Ringing Respite. This is what you ultimately use for your solo farming with gold pieces. So use that ahead of time. This is the weather effect. Battle Ringing Respite and your Suspend or Float. So ultimately you do Battle Bell first, switch over to the Canineer, and then you would run up the tower way in the back there, and then start pulling all the eyeball guys, and then you would zerg them down with Canineer. So we're going to get hit here. So yeah, Geomancer definitely has its quirks, but definitely is best used for solo. So personal ranking, definitely an S because of the gold farming. As for practical use, unfortunately I had to give it a C because of the weather, and basically Suspend is like very niche and it doesn't really work too well, and the Respite is meh to me, so I give it a C altogether. Next is Phantom Bard. So level 1 we have Offensive Araya, increases damage dealt by itself and nearby party members by 4%, duration 70 seconds. Cannot be used with Hero's Rhyme. I believe it's 1%, but since we got the buff at level 2, which increases the effectiveness of songs in accordance with your Phantom Bard level. So, because there's 4 levels, we get 3 extra %. So basically that's how it works. Level 2, we get Romeo's Ballad. Freezes time for all nearby party members. Basically it's a stop for 3 seconds. If you use this around a knowledge crystal, you get a 10% increase to battle experience, but this only works on single target mobs or mobs out in the open world. It does not increase experience through critical engagements or fates. It's ultimately kind of useless really because you only want to do critical engagements and fates for experience. Level 3, Mighty March. Restores HP and HP of all nearby party members for 3500 potency. Increases maximum HP by 20, and restores the amount increased, kind of like Throw a Battle, and that lasts for 30 seconds, with 120 recast time. Hero's Rhyme, which basically is the same thing as this, but does a little bit different, increases damage dealt and healing potency of self and nearby party members by 10%, reducing damage taken by 10%, but this only lasts 20 seconds. Since they cannot be stacked, you want to wait for this one to fall off first, and then you can use Hero's Rhyme, or do this first and then switch over. Alright, so let's go into a demonstration now. The Romeo's Ballad can pull a lot of enemies around you, so be very careful. So there's Arcane Stop. Mighty March increases our HP and restores. Hero's Rhyme goes first because it has a shorter duration. So if you use the Araya, it does not go through. Occult Stop, or the Romeo's Ballad Stop. Alright, the rhyme fell off, so now I can activate that. And basically that's Bard in a nutshell. So for practical use, definitely give it a B. It's pretty solid. But for my personal opinion, I give it a C. I don't personally like it. Doesn't really do much for me. Doesn't really add much to the battle, so I give it a solid C. Next is Phantom Oracle. Phantom Oracle has Predict, which basically is kind of like Astrologian with the card system. So you got Judgment, Cleansing, Blessing, and Starfall. Starfall does damage to you and your enemies around you. If you're not full HP, you most likely will die. The Blessing does a regen and heals. Cleansing does damage and freezes your enemies. And Phantom Judgment heals and does damage to your enemies and AoEs. If you do not use a prediction, you get a dot that does 50,000 potency every 3 seconds for 30 seconds. That's a recast time of 60 seconds, so every minute you get a prediction. Recuperation just removes a detrimental effect from you and your party members for 20 seconds. If it falls off, you get a fortified recuperation for 3 seconds. Ultimately, I can't really see this being used outside of the Fork Tower, so I think this is pretty much useless. Phantom Doom has a chance of triggering, but sometimes it will fail. Can last 8 or up to 60 seconds. So basically 8 to 60 seconds or anything in between. Kills an enemy when it expires, obviously. Shares a recast timer with a recuperation. Cannot be used outside of combat, otherwise it won't work. And if you leave, it will fall off your enemy. So it has to be targeted and hitting the enemy for it to work. Rejuvenation, Earthly Star with a 90,000 cure potency after it expires in 20 seconds. And at 30 yalm range. Invulnerability, basically team move version of Home Gong, but only can be used on somebody else and only lasts 8 seconds. And it has a 180 recast time. Absolutely garbage. Okay, so let's go and attack. So we're going to use a Predict. So we got Blessing. We're going to wait. We got Cleansing. We got Judgment. That's what I wanted. That does heal and damage. Recuperation does nothing. We got Doom. Mist, so it doesn't work. And then we get Rejuvenation. Okay, so basically that is Oracle in a nutshell. The Predict will cycle through, so make sure you pay attention to what you're using. And then ultimately, if you don't use it, you're basically going to die. So my honest opinion, F tier for both personal and practicality. Sorry, not sorry, it just sucks. And there goes that. Okay, so on to the next one. And now for my second favorite job, Canineer. So you get Phantom Fire, Holy Cannon, Dark Cannon, Shock Cannon, and Silver Cannon. They all do 210 potency. So Phantom Fire has a 5% chance of insta-killing your enemies. The more you have, the higher the chance of someone dying from it. That's the trait level 5. Holy Cannon does 500 potency on the undead. Dark Cannon gives blind for 30 seconds. Shows a recast timer of Shock. Shock Cannon does paralysis for 18 seconds. And Silver Cannon reduces damage dealt from the enemy by 10%, but increases the damage they take by 5%, and that lasts 70 seconds, and shares a recast timer with Holy Cannon. Ultimately, Phantom Fire, Shock, and Silver Cannon is the best ones you use for solo gold farming pieces. And level 5, you get the insta-kill trait. This is probably the best one to use for damage. Since they're all weapons, you can use your skill speed to reduce the damage or reduce the cast time for it. And that's about it. Basically, it's just pure damage, pure DPS, and that's why I love it. So Canineer, S tier for personal and S tier for practicality, because it's the best job to do solo and group farming for gold pieces. And there you go. Last but not least, Freelancer. Levels up as you master other jobs. So Resuscitation. Restores 30% of max HP, instacast, and it's a weapon skill so it works off your speed. And then you got Occult Treasure Sight. Shows you exactly what is left in your instance for treasure, for bronze and silver. Doesn't tell you where, so ultimately you got to look for it, but it does tell you, which is 1 bronze after every critical engagement or encounter. I think it's 1 after every 2 fates, and silver depends. The more you kill, there's a chance that they will spawn. The silver does work that way. It also will work as you do more critical engagements and fates. They do not respawn upon just waiting. Okay? So that's basically a Freelancer. Personal, S tier because of the treasure. D tier for practicality because ultimately it only has 2. Healing and treasure. So that is pretty much going to be all the rankings for personal and practical use for the Phantom jobs in the Occult Crescent. This is all my opinion. Obviously, you guys will have yours, so sign off in the comments down below. Alright guys, so that's pretty much going to be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to check out the rest of my channel for more Final Fantasy XIV content, and I will see you guys in the next one. Have fun! And that's it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel if you're new for more Final Fantasy XIV content and help with the YouTube algorithm. If you guys want to support my channel even further, consider becoming a YouTube member, Patreon supporter, or help me on Ko-Fi. The links for those will be in the description down below, as well as my Discord. And the extra special shout out to the members on screen. So until next time, if you ever walk in the glorious light of Lord Bahamut, and always remember to keep forging ahead.